Hello and welcome to exfidebibles. My name is Ethan. So today I have a quick video, kind of a how-to on how I apply art gilding to Bibles. So this was actually a request I got from a customer and new rebinder. I sent him, a Bible that I rebound for him, and he was asking me, how do you get your art gilding so consistent? I think he said something like, your art gilding looks more consistent than a lot of other rebinders, and I would love to see how you do it, because he's kind of starting to experiment with rebinding Bibles as well. So I'm going to show you the process that I go through to do that. So this is a Bible that I have already done. This is like what my art gilding looks like as a finished product. I mean, it's not the most consistent I've ever seen, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I could touch it up a little bit more, but I'm not. This is a personal Bible, so I'm not too concerned about it. But I'm going to do one of these live to show you how I do that. So here I have a ESV thin line reference. I'm actually doing a retread of a ESV Heirloom Omega, and I have this thin line reference text block, which is the same as the Omega text block, and I'm taking that older Omega goatskin cover and putting it on this block, and I'm going to be selling it here soon. So I have I have some nice, Beresford ribbons on here and nice headbands and all of that. So I'm going to be adding some art gilding on this today, live for you all to see. So this is going to be kind of difficult to get framed perfectly. And, with this angle, it's kind of difficult keeping my microphone out of the way, out of frame. So I hope you can bear with me here. So the color we're going to be doing today is red geranium. This is by far my favorite color that I've seen. I kind of have a few colors that I use. I don't have every Ranger color out there by far, but the two that I really like on the red spectrum are red geranium. I like for a darker red, and I also have a tea rose, which is another great color. If you want like a lighter accent color, I really like tea rose. It's kind of a red, pink, salmon color, really close to what Cambridge does, what Youngblood does for Cambridge on their Bibles. But if I'm going dark, I always use this red geranium here. So a couple tools that I use. So this is a makeup sponge, and this is a kind of more of a detailed makeup applicator. So these are going to be the tools that I use today to do this on this Bible. And as you can see here, I reuse these. I keep them in a bag. I do this because after a couple uses, these get really saturated with dye, and I don't want to lose that dye. And they actually, I think after a couple uses, the sponges and this applicator becomes more effective. So I don't throw them out. I don't want to. If you use these as a one-use thing, you end up losing a lot of dye. So I reuse these. So I haven't done really anything to this. I have not refreshed or reapplied dye to this pad yet. But I have just dropped a few drops of water on this every now and again. If I ever feel like my pad is getting a little bit dry and it's difficult getting dye to really come off of the pad, I'll just put a few drops of water and kind of work it around, kind of like put pressure on this with the sponge and just work that around, because you want a good balance of moisture, but also a really high concentration, a high saturation of the archival dye to go on your pages. But if this is too dry, this is not going to apply very well. And the opposite is true too. If these are too wet, they are not going to apply very well. And I can show you an example of that here. So a while back, I got a ESV diadem hardback that I wanted to do as a non-commission project, and I ended up getting this Tim Holtz Distress ink, and this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about when it comes to you don't want your ink to be too saturated. So this ink, when I got it, was really saturated with ink. And you can see here on the edge of the page, hopefully that's in focus, but it's saturated through the page way too deeply, which is not what you want. So this block is useless now. So at least, I mean, I could rebind it for a personal project, but I probably will not spend the time to do that. So the moral of that story is if you get a new ink, I don't know if all of the Tim Holtz Distress inks are that wet, but I knew kind of something was off as soon as I put my, the clean makeup sponge into it, and it was like soaking all the way through. Kind of bummed that I went ahead and tried to apply that to the page edges, but you live and you learn. But definitely, like when you get a new one of these, definitely try it on maybe a book you don't care about, or on a piece of a piece of paper to make sure it's not too saturated or too dry. So enough dilly-dallying. Let's get to it here. So you don't really need much for this. I do like having this like detailed applicator here to get into some kind of tight spots. So here I just have my ruler here, and I always do the side of the block first. And the idea here is that you want to really fan out the pages here. Sorry, I was making sure you're in frame. Really fan out the pages here as much as you can. But you don't want to press this all the way down and have them fully fanned out, because you really want kind of a medium. You kind of want them medium fanned out, because otherwise you're going to have a situation where you apply too much dye. So let's get started here. Now I know there's a bunch of people on. So the idea with this here is you want this ruler to really protect your end sheets. It's not as big of a deal with these vinyl end sheets, but if you had a map here as your last page, you wouldn't want your dye to get on your map. So this ruler here is not only to keep your pages positioned, fanned correctly, but it's also to protect your last page. So there's a couple different techniques that people do with this. And the best technique that I have found is to just kind of be random with it, honestly. Like, you don't want to be applying this like too heavily into one area. Like, you want to keep your sponge moving at all times and just apply it. Because if you don't keep your sponge moving, you're going to get a blotchy application here. So see, there's a little bit of a blotchy section right there, and you can kind of smooth that away by kind of applying the dye evenly to that section. So, and I'm not pushing down that much. I'm really just letting the just making sure I have even pressure. And then you just work your way down. So that's what we're doing here. So also the trick to this is that to get an even coat, you need to do this on one side and then flip it over and do it exactly the same on the other side. It's looking pretty good so far. And once it dries too, sometimes I'll notice like some areas need some touch up. And you can touch it up. No issues there. So it's looking pretty good. This is really very simple. I started doing this art gilding before I was really into rebinding Bibles. I saw how easy this was from a few videos on YouTube, and I just started doing it on all my older premium Bibles. I did it on my old Omega. I did it on it's not a premium Bible, but I did it on my ESV wide margin reference. So when you do this, there's going to be dye on the hand that you're applying, on the hand that you're using to apply. So just be aware of that. Like don't go touching something you don't want to get dye on. And you can obviously do this on Bibles that still have a cover on them, but the trick is that you want to put a paper towel underneath this end sheet under here to make sure you don't get dye on your cover. So this is easier to do when your cover is not on the Bible, which is why I usually when I'm rebinding a Bible, I do this on a Bible that I have a clean spine, no reinforcement, no headbands, no bookmarks, because I don't want to, like when you're working with dye, excuse me, when you're working with dye, you don't want to risk spending the work to put your Oxford Hollow on, put your headbands, your ribbons, your reinforcement. You don't want to have all of that work done, and then you have to go back to the drawing board because you get a little bit of dye on your ribbons or on your headbands. You know, you don't want to have to go and undo a bunch of work that you're doing. So I normally do that. I did that on the Bibles that I am rebinding for February here. But on this one, I honestly forgot. So that's looking pretty good here. Looking pretty consistent. There's some splotchiness right there. So don't be afraid to go in and retouch it up. And the great thing about this little applicator here is that it's really good for these kind of hard spots. And this little applicator is specifically great for getting kind of the top of the Bible kind of right near your head and tail bands. If you're doing this while those... oh yeah, that looks a lot better. Looks pretty good. Let's fully fan this down and try to get... I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, doing this by hand with a sponge, you're never going to be as consistent as, you know, Royal Youngblood can do with a professional... I think they use a spraying machine of some kind. So what we're, as rebinders, able to do, you just gotta continue to improve and then, you know, be, you know, somewhat satisfied with the best that you can do. So the trick here for this is that you have to kind of pull down this far corner to get these pages to fan out like that. So put my ruler here, and here we go. So I really don't change my applicator sponges very often. I really only change them when they start to get chewed up by the page edges and start to kind of fray, because then they'll leave like little foam boogers everywhere. So the reason why I like this applicator here is that it helps you get kind of down along the bottom of the Bible. And up here, trying to move my mic out of the way a little bit. And up here near the head and tail bands. So this is awkward with the camera, but see, I got a little bit on my head and tail bands, which is what I did not want, but it's okay. See, I mean, the absolute best way to do this is to do it without the, that's not bad, it's acceptable, I think. Although I might just replace that one. Yeah, I'm gonna replace that one. I'm planning on selling this this retread, so I really want, whoever's buying this Bible to get the best they can. So, I mean, I haven't done the Oxford Hollow yet, so I might as well just, actually, I'm just gonna pull that off. There you go. Yeah, so much easier when you don't have a head and tail bands. Don't have to worry about those. So another thing to be aware of when you do this, obviously this is dye, so it requires some time to dry. And I know how to kind of fan out the Bible to look at how the dye is applied without, putting a dye thumbprint on the Bible. But just be aware that this does take some time to dry, and you do have dye on your fingers when you're doing this. So you don't want to, you just want to be very aware of where dye is going. Because you don't want to have if you're a new rewinder and you're having, I'm actually going to pull this headband off too. Try to do it without taking the ribbons off. Yeah, not too bad. Just going to pull the ribbons up a little bit so I can get all the way up there. So if you're doing this, for a customer, obviously you don't want to put a bright red thumbprint on their sentimental Bible. So you just gotta, as a rebinder, you gotta be so aware of what you're doing always, especially when you're working with, if you're doing non-commission projects and you're just turning around Bibles for cash or whatever, that's one thing. But if you're taking someone's like precious possession and kind of giving them your word, like, I'm going to take this, break it down, make it, 10 times better or whatever, you got to be so aware of what you're doing, because you do not want to mess up someone else's possessions. That's like the worst. Christians, we got to do good to everyone, and especially those who are in the household of faith. And messing up someone's Bible is like the opposite of that. So with that caution comes with experience. So it's looking pretty good. There we go. Looks pretty good to me. So yeah, the trick is you got to do this on both sides to get this really consistent. So man, I was telling my wife about some of the videos I've been making for YouTube. She asked me, like, what's the average length of videos that I make? And I said, oh, they're about 20 minutes long, whatever. And she's like, oh, you should really, like, make them shorter. And that's a good suggestion. I'm not, dissing her suggestion or anything like that, but I do not know how to make a short video. I just do not know how to do that. It's not in my wheelhouse. So that looks pretty good if I say so myself. So again, this is Ranger ink, Ranger archival ink. You want the acid-free, permanent, waterproof. You don't want anything with alcohol in it. This is going to be safe for paper, guaranteed. The Ranger archival ink. And this is red geranium, by far my favorite color. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So I think that's really good, guys. Let me move my stuff out of the way and we can see what this looks like open. Obviously, I have to be very, very careful about not putting a red thumbprint on this Bible. But so when you fan the Bible this much, you're going to tell some variation. That's really impossible to avoid. But really what you want is, like, when it's fanned about this much, you want to make sure it's consistent enough for that. So really what you want is for when it's open and when people are using it, you want it to be really consistent. And I think that looks pretty good. I might have been a little bit too heavy on application because I kind of oversaturated it just a little bit, maybe because I was doing it for the video. There's a little bit more bleed than what I normally do, but I'm really happy with how that looks. I love the red, the deep red color. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for checking out my video. This is how to apply art gilt to a Bible. You can do this on a Bible that you are rebinding or an older Bible. Some people don't like applying art gilt to, like, really old Bibles that have a lot of gild damage and stuff like that. But I don't mind that. I more red shows through, and I like the red color. So I don't think that looks bad at all. Some people kind of knock that, but I don't. So I'm gonna be putting my older Heirloom Omega cover on this thin line reference block and selling that soon. So if you are interested in purchasing that, I don't know what price I'm going to be selling that for, but it's going to be, retread by me, Beresford ribbons and new headbands and all of that, art gilding. So if you're interested, let me know. You can send me an email. But I will be posting that on Facebook, on my Facebook page at some point when I'm done with it. So let me know. All right. Thank you for watching. My name is Ethan from Exfidebibles.